Let's talk about one of the biggest geopolitical shifts happening right now, one that's reshaping the world as we know it, China's incredible push into the Middle East. Now, this isn't just another story about oil or trade deals. This is about the very foundations of a region that for decades has been dominated by the United States. And what's happening there has huge implications for the entire global order. And this, of course, brings us to the big question you see in all the headlines, right? Is China actually replacing America in the Middle East? Is Beijing about to become the new sheriff in town as Washington supposedly steps back? It's a really compelling story. But the truth, well, the truth is a whole lot more interesting and, frankly, a lot more complex. So the myth, the easy narrative, is that China is just sliding into America's empty seat at the head of the table. A simple one-for-one swap. But the reality? Oh, it's so much more sophisticated than that. You see, China isn't playing the same game at all. It's trying to change the entire board. Okay, so to really get what's going on, we have to look right past those simple headlines. We need to actually deconstruct this whole idea of a new sheriff and figure out what China's real strategy actually is. This quote from analyst John Alterman really just nails it. The West tends to assume China wants to go head-to-head, a symmetrical fight. But that's a huge miscalculation. Beijing isn't trying to match the U.S. aircraft carrier for aircraft carrier. It's changing the rules of the competition itself, playing to its biggest strength, its massive economic power. And to get a handle on that economic strategy, there's only one thing to do. You gotta follow the money. And that trail leads us straight to China's gigantic Belt and Road Initiative. Think of it as a modern Silk Road, literally paving the way for Beijing's influence right across the region. Just wrap your head around this number for a second. $39 billion. That's how much China's BRI deals were worth in the Middle East in just 1 year. And get this, that's a surge of over 100% from the year before. This isn't just investment. It's a strategic fire hose of cash designed to build deep, lasting economic ties. And let's be honest, a certain level of dependency. So where is all this money flowing? Well, the data tells a fascinating story. Almost half of it is going to Saudi Arabia, a key American ally, mind you. And the focus is just as strategic. Over 60% is poured into oil and gas, which, of course, secures China's energy supply lines. But look at that other big slice. Almost a third is going into green energy. This tells you China isn't just thinking about today's oil. It's positioning itself as the indispensable partner for the region's energy future. Now, all this economic power, it's the foundation for China's diplomatic playbook. And this playbook is radically different from anything you see from the West. The core idea is brilliantly simple and incredibly effective. Be friends with everyone. And yes, that includes being friends with their worst enemies. The secret sauce to this whole playbook is the principle of non-interference. See, unlike the US or Europe, China's official policy is to invest and trade with absolutely no strings attached. No lectures about human rights, no demands about democracy, no telling you who your friends can and can't be. And for a lot of leaders in the region, that makes Beijing look like a much more reliable, much more attractive partner. I mean, just think about the implications of this. We're talking about a country that maintains deep strategic partnerships with sworn enemies. China is a top trading partner for both Saudi Arabia and Iran. It's investing billions in Israeli high-tech while at the same time championing the Palestinian cause at the United Nations. This is a diplomatic tightrope walk on a scale you just rarely see in modern history. And if you think this friends with everyone approach is just talk, well, think again. In 2023, it caused a diplomatic earthquake. Beijing, out of nowhere, managed to broker a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, two bitter rivals who had been fighting a proxy war for years. It was a massive signal that China's unique brand of diplomacy could actually get results where Western efforts had failed. So, if China isn't trying to replace the US, what is its ultimate goal? What's the end game? This brings us to the most important part of this whole story, the key concept that analysts are now using to describe what Beijing is really up to in the Middle East. The strategy is called wedging, and the goal isn't to kick America out in a direct fight. No, it's much smarter than that. The goal is to slowly, subtly, and persistently drive a wedge between Washington and its oldest allies, countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Egypt. The message from Beijing is simple and powerful. America is unpredictable and demanding, while we, China, are a steady, pragmatic partner who's just here to do business. So how do they actually pull this off? Well, it's pretty much a four-step playbook. Step 1. Use all that investment we talked about to create economic dependency. Step 2. Constantly push the narrative that the U.S. is an unreliable partner that's pivoting away from the region. Step 3. Use organizations like BRICS to build an alternative, non-Western club where China is the leader. And finally, Step 4. Always position China as the responsible power, the one focused on development for all, not military intervention. And look, this isn't some abstract theory cooked up in a think tank. It's happening in rooms just like this. This is about high-level personal diplomacy. By building these really close relationships with leaders across the region, Beijing creates the trust it needs to make that wedge strategy work. It turns strategic partners into personal allies. But here's the thing about a beautifully crafted strategy. Eventually, it runs headfirst into the messy, chaotic real world. And right now, China's delicate balancing act is facing its ultimate test, a Middle East that is on fire. And the pressure is coming from all sides. The Gaza crisis forced Beijing to take a much stronger pro-Palestinian stance, which is straining its relationship with Israel. Then you have the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, which are a direct threat to China's own shipping and trade routes to Europe. And a full-blown war between Israel and Iran, that would make China's friends with everyone policy basically impossible to maintain. And this gets to the fundamental problem for Beijing. When your major partners are actually at war with each other, being neutral can start to look a lot like doing nothing. For a country with so much at stake, a great power, staying on the sidelines just might not be an option anymore. China's entire strategy is being forced to adopt in real time. So, what's the bottom line here? It's this. China is not the new America. It doesn't even want to be. It is something else entirely, a permanent transformative force in the region. Its end goal isn't to be the lone superpower calling all the shots. The goal is to help create a multipolar Middle East, a region with many centers of power, where Beijing is an absolutely indispensable player that no one can afford to ignore. And this leaves us with the final, absolutely critical question. As China helps build this new multipolar Middle East, what does it actually mean for the rest of us? Does its focus on economics and development promise a new kind of stability for a troubled region? Or is it just creating a new, more complicated chessboard for the great power competition between Beijing and Washington? The answer to that question is going to define the Middle East and maybe the world for decades to come.